Today, I called into James O'Brien's show. He was talking about my favourite subject, Brexit, because there's a new report out by the National Audit Office on the cost to the public purse of these new checks, which are meant to be absolutely amazing, according to the government, to the Conservatives. But obviously, they're not. Like everything else, they're not able to function properly. There's lots of problems with them, and they're a huge burden in terms of costing us consumers more and businesses more, making it more difficult to bring goods in here. Added to which, the thing that people don't really understand is that for 3.5 years, we've had checks imposed on us because of the deal that Boris Johnson chose. But for 3.5 years, they've allowed imports to come in here and undercut us British farmers. And that means that many of us British farmers have actually given up producing food. Either we've gone into environmental schemes, some have given up altogether. We've lost 2 big salad growers here. So we've become, in the last 3.5 years, more dependent than ever on food from the EU. Now, as we've just had a very bad winter, and before that a very difficult summer, a very difficult time of 18 months with weather, they've decided to put these checks on, which is only going to ensure real problems for food, unless they can find a magic supply somehow to arrive here. I don't know where from and how. But ultimately, it couldn't be a more reckless and negligent act, what they're doing. And the money is so needed in other areas. We've got millions of children living in poverty, unable to eat a good enough diet, so they're actually getting problems like rickets and malnutrition diseases. And here we are spending a huge amount of money on these border checks when all we need to do is dynamically align with EU regulations, something that farmers would be delighted with, because we don't want the lower standard imports coming in, undercutting us, and it's also incredibly bad for our public health. Anyway, have a listen and see what you think.
Liz in Cricklade, or Liz Webster, as she is introduced on other shows that ring her, well, I just sit here arrogantly waiting for her to ring me, is, as you will know, the head of Save British Farming, and I think it's fair to say one of the very few people who is much further down the road of reversal than I think we are as a country. So I'll ask you the same question, Liz. What's going to change before the conversation reaches the sort of levels that you clearly believe it should have reached weeks or months, if not years ago?
Well, it's going to be food panic. They spent 3.5 years using mostly imports from Europe to put us out of business. Then we've had the worst weather ever in the last 18 months.
Talking about British farmers now.
Farming, yeah. And I know people think farming is a hobby, but we mostly actually feed the British people, or we had been doing that. So the government policy has been running down British farming. The weather has, and Brexit has. And just as things are getting to a crisis point for food production here, this government have brought in these checks to make things even worse. I mean, I feel like Penelope Pitstop, actually, against Dick Dastardly and Muttley in a race, because they keep doing these things and make it look as if it's a he mistake. But I'm sorry, it can't. They know what's coming on. They're speaking to farmers, and it's the most negligent and dangerous thing that they're doing. They're cooking, real problems. And I'm guessing they're hoping that as Labour come into power, it's going to, really hit a crisis point.
And how do we then step back from that crisis point? What, in policy terms, in the short term, would alleviate? Because, no one's suggesting you can change the weather, but in terms of the things that would make life easier for farmers, even as they deal with the other variables.
Well, this is the stupidest thing about Brexit. They talk about sovereignty. As far as I'm concerned, a country that can't feed itself doesn't have sovereignty. None of us can survive without food. And so what they've done with Brexit is make us more reliant on Europe. I told this to Nigel Farage in his show last week when he replied it's insanity. That is what's going on.
I didn't share that clip because I hate to give him any promotion whatsoever. Maybe that's a mistake, because you go on these programmes and you basically hand them their backsides in a gift wrapped with a bow on top. But does it change anything, Liz? I know you know I'm a big fan of viral tweets and the rest of it. But does it change anything when you do things like that?
Well, of course, because it's pointless. We're all speaking to each other in the same bubble of it, agreeing with it. When the people that love Nigel, I want to reach.
Yes, fair enough.
And that's the whole point. And if I'm nasty to Nigel, I mean, I like Nigel. I think he's quite good fun. But I just don't agree with his ideology. But ultimately, this is about all of us. And the richer you are, the less problems
the more insulated you are from all of the problems, and because you're not going to even notice that you're paying more for everything. What though, in policy terms, what could they do? Because it's very difficult for us to ramp up production in the time needed. The only way to do it is to release the trade barriers. And if Labour had any sense, but then they would need to sign up for some sort of regulatory alignment, right?
Yes, we need
which
dynamic
is fine,
alignment.
and it's not going to hurt anyone. It's just that it's become an ideological kind of hill on which these idiots are prepared to die.
It's the right-wing press want to use it in the election to say, we told you he's a secret Remainer. Right. I honestly believe that people would prefer to have food sovereignty. It's national
food sovereignty is a good phrase. Are you not encouraged by the news regarding razor clams?
I've long gone beyond being encouraged, and at the moment we're spending most of the time trying to get all of our maize drilled before the rain comes back. Or it'll probably be a drought now. But
be careful what you wish for. Anna Firth, I think, is the name of the Conservative MP who said that we found razor clams in the River Thames, and that was a Brexit benefit. Could that not plug some of the holes in our food production and supply that you describe?
Well, the British people don't eat a lot of shellfish, so I doubt they're going to be going
it's time they bloody started, Liz. Frankly, they're not going to have much choice in the matter soon.
There's even less rabbits around than there used to be, but there's plenty of squirrels. There are actually plenty of deer, but
and of course, as you know better than anyone, it's that final connection, that final synaptic connection that is hard to guarantee, particularly given the state of the media that you allude to. So you walk into Morrison's, you see empty shelves, or you notice the price of, at the moment, olive oil is probably the most nuclear in terms of prices going up. It will be expensive everywhere. There are shortages, but it will be more expensive here because of the £5 billion worth of trade barriers that we've erected on our own borders. So always see Brexit as a magnifying glass, not necessarily as the cause of a problem. Liz mentions the weather. So the weather causes problems, but Brexit creates or adds to the problems that already exist. So will you put two and two together when you're looking at your shelves in Sainsbury's and either wondering where your food is or wondering why it's so expensive? And some of the answer to both of those questions will be Brexit. But are people ready to go there? You've got politicians shouting Ukraine and COVID at every opportunity, which have also caused problems. That's the point. They are also magnifying glasses for existing problems. But when will we be ready to actually call the B word the B word? Thank you, Liz. Venky's in Croydon.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and comment below.